Welcome to Piano Video Lessons, Year 1, Unit 2. Today's lesson is lesson number 11, and it's video 27 on YouTube. We're going to be learning to play Ode to Joy today by Beethoven. So let me just give you a quick demonstration of this piece. I love it. So this piece uses lots of things we've been learning and covering all through these lessons up to now. It's going to be playing in 4/4 time. It's going to play forte, piano, and forte. It's going to use our newest note, which was landmark bass C in the left hand. And it's going to be playing notes that move by neighbors or seconds, some repeats in through here, and it's also going to have skips or thirds. There are some patterns in these notes, and your fingers are going to have lots of fun playing hands together. So this is the most challenging piece that we're going to be learning so far. So it might take a little extra practicing for those of you who are just getting started learning for the very first time. So let's have a look at it. We've already talked about a few of the details, but let's first examine the left hand, because the left hand often gets neglected, or it's often the harder part to play. So having a look here, we're going to be playing fingers 1 and 5 in the bass staff, and the bottom note here is our newest note. Remember this one? This is going to be your landmark note, bass C. And then we have this note at the very top, which we know from being a note higher than bass F, and that one's going to be G. And we're going to hold this for 4. So we're going to play it at the very beginning of the measure while we start the right hand. We're going to hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in the next measure, we play the same thing again, and the same thing again, and then the same thing again. And continuing, the next line begins the same way, holding for 4 on these same 2 notes. And now when we get to the end of this line, we notice we play just the top one, same note, and then bass C. This one holds for 1, 2, and 3, 4. So hold for 2, and then hold for 2. Now on the next line, we have more top space notes. So that's the same note we've been playing all along, which is our G above bass F. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Now we're playing more gently. We have a piano, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest for 2. G for 2. Now this line is identical to one of the other lines. Is it the same as line 1, 2, or 3? It's the same as line 2. You are correct. So we don't have to review that one. But you should now pause the video and practice playing just the left hand and counting to 4. And then when we come back, we're going to have a look at the right hand. All right, so hopefully you've practiced your left hand, and now we're going to look at the right hand. So it starts off with third finger, and it starts off on this note right here, bottom line of the treble staff. And if you remember that note, it is E. So we have E, repeat, neighbor, neighbor. That takes us up to G. Then we have G, repeat, neighbor, 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 which takes us all the way down to C, repeat, neighbor, neighbor, repeat the E, neighbor, repeat the D. So let's think about what fingers we'll use to play this part of the piece. If we repeat the E with third finger, and then we go to a neighbor, we're going to go up, and it's going to take us to finger 4. Then we're going to go up to finger 5. We'll repeat, and then we're going to walk down, 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 and down. So you should do this along with me, planning out your fingers. We're now on thumb on C, which repeats, walks up again to 3, and that's the same note. So we'll play 3 again. Now, do we have a neighbor or a skip here? From a line to a space, it's a neighbor. We're going to go down to finger 2 on D and repeat it. and hold for 2. So let's try this on the piano. The rhythm is very straightforward. It's all quarter notes until the end where we have to hold for 2. So we're going to march our notes steadily. I've got my third finger on the E above middle C. I'm going to go nice and slow. E, repeat, walk up again, repeat that note. Now I'm walking down note by note. This part's easy, but I'm not rushing. I'm keeping my beat. C, repeat, walking up, repeat that note, walking down, and then hold for 2. All right, so you should try that now. Please pause the video and try playing just the right hand, and play it until you can move through those notes without stopping in between them, keeping the beat steady. And now we're going to look at line 2. So for line 2, I'm going to compare it first to line 1. I see that it has E repeat, step up to G, G, down, 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 C, C. These are all the same until here. So right here, I went E repeat in the first line. So here I had E repeat, but here I have E down to D. So that's where the change happens. So here I'm going to go from third finger E, down, neighbor to 2, down neighbor to middle C, repeat. So let's try to play that right off. We're going to start again with our third finger on E because nothing has changed here. And we're going to play steadily. E, repeat, up again, repeat the G, walking down, 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 downward to C now, repeat the C, walking up and up, walking back down, D, and then C, and hold for 2. All right, so now practice this line paying special attention to the end. Hopefully you've practiced the first 2 lines, and now we're ready to play the third line. So let's have a look at this line. It starts off with D. Which finger is that going to be? If we had our 3 on E, which finger is going to be playing D? Yes, it's going to be finger 2. If you want to, you can mark in a 2 right there to remind yourself on this new line that we're continuing with our 2. So here it starts on D, and then this next measure starts on D, and this next measure starts on D. And then we have C. So it's good to know that each of these measures starts on a D, and it's good to know that because each of these measures is unique. None of them is the same, but they do all start with D. So here I have D repeat, up a neighbor from a space to a line, that takes us to E. Then from line to line, is that a neighbor or a skip? It is a skip, third. Then we start on D, and from this space we go to this space. Is that going to be a neighbor or a third? It's a third. Then we have from space to line, which is another neighbor, and then we have space to space, then we have line to line, and that is another third. So let's try playing those 2. Let's start with 2 on D, D, repeat, neighbor up, skip down. Now back to 2, skip up, neighbor down, skip down. And then we have almost the same. We have 2 on D and then another space. That's a skip. Then we have from a skip down to a line and then another neighbor. So that's what's different from here to here. Then we have just 2 notes, C and D, and finishing with G. So this is actually part of the melody here. The left hand has been playing harmony up to now, but that note is part of the melody. And then we observed before, this line is identical to this line. So we have now covered all the original material that there is to play in this piece. So the next challenge is going to be playing it hands together. So please do practice this third line with just your right hand. All right. Let's try playing now hands together, and let's start off with the first line. So we're going to play, when we play this 3 on E, we're going to be playing your left hand playing 5 and 1 at the same time. So you want all of those 3 notes to land at exactly the same time on beat 1. There they are, landing together. Listen that it doesn't do this. Listen that it doesn't do this. They have to land together. You might want to practice doing that a few times. Place your hands, remember, nice relaxed hand position, curved fingers, play on your finger pads, press your weight into the keys. A really good tip is make sure your fingers are touching the keys before you sink in. If one of your fingers is above the key like this and you play, that one's going to land too late. So make sure they're all touching the piano keys when you play them together. And now the next measure, and then the next measure. So you notice that my left hand joined in with the right, each new measure on beat number 1. When you're playing this one, this is the beginning of measure number 2, that one might be a little tricky to time because pinky is sometimes your weakest finger. So as you walk down here, you want to make sure they land together. Then you have your thumb in this third measure, and finger 3 again. Now this line is the same until we get to here. So let's pick it up starting in the third measure of the second line. We're going to put thumb on C, play together, and here we go. We're going to play just G and then just C in the left hand. So G plays with D and C plays with C. Do that again. G plays with D, then you play an extra C and then together. So this little section right here, you may need to practice this extra times in order to feel comfortable and coordinated on that. All right, now the next line, we're going to play this softly, and we're going to be playing lots of G's in the left hand. Now the right hand has all this variation in the melody, so pay mostly attention to your right hand and time your left hand in on beat number 1. Each time we're playing finger 2, we'll play along, and here we have a rest. So when we get to this measure, we don't play the left hand, we wait until beat 3. So we'll start right here. 2 D's, up a neighbor, down a skip, together, skip, neighbor, skip, together, skip, neighbor, neighbor, C, D, G for 2. So for this line here, you want to maybe do this line extra times as well. This is the most challenging line of the entire piece because there's so much variety happening within that one measure, or within that one line of music. Each measure is slightly different than the one before, although it is quite a bit the same, which makes it a little tricky. Okay, and then we have the last line, just like the second line. Nice and strong, forte notes, marching beat, steady down. Watching out for the ending. This is a little tricky. All right, so practice Ode to Joy until you can play it nice and steadily through, just as I did in the beginning of the lesson. I wanted to point out this sheet that's in your appendix as well. If you want to use this to help you find some notes, if you're a little rusty, it's a good guide chart to help you locate notes that you're trying to figure out. So if you forgot that line 1 on the bottom here was E, you could just look at this line and drive your finger right across until you ended up on the key that is touching here, and you see that it's E, and this is middle C right here. So this little chart could be very handy for you to reference some of the notes in the pieces that you're working on. Now, in our next lesson, we have a finger gym, and it's a very special exercise called a pentascale. So come on back tomorrow for lesson number 12.